Welcome to SIIA's Tech Chats. I am joined today by Bill Fisher, who is president and co-founder of Quicksilver Software. Quicksilver is an independent software developer. They specialize in developing games, educational software, and military training products. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
So can we talk a little bit about your methodology for design and implementation, and what role do the end users play?
Good question. We spend a lot of time looking at what the end user wants and trying to get inside of their head, because that's really the key to modern software design. You want to minimize the amount of interaction that they have that's complicated, that's scary, that is intimidating, that might lead them to not want to continue with your product. So we spend a lot of time analyzing what's going on, and that it varies, of course, depending on the nature of the product. If we're doing a restaurant, we did a restaurant where everybody had to be able to order food on an iPad, and it had to be super easy. We actually worked a lot with the client. They had some great ideas on what they wanted it to look like visually, and then we played around with several different alternatives, tried them out, checked them out with ourselves, and then put it in front of live people to see what would happen. Right now, we're doing a medical ID card product, and that one's interesting. It's a big challenge because it's very complicated. There's a lot of data that we need to collect. And so we're spending some time. As a matter of fact, we just had a design meeting yesterday about how we can make some changes to the app to reward people as they're going through the process and make it a little bit less scary to enter all this data, and to be comfortable that, yes, you're doing the right thing, you're going the right way, this is what it's going to look like, aren't you very happy that you're using our product? So it really is very much user-centric these days in the way we put things together.
Now, you've said that you apply games design in every project that you guys do. Can you talk about that from the military and educational project perspective? How does that apply there?
Gamification is the big buzzword these days. Some people don't like that word. I actually like that word. I think it's great because it really does convey what's going on, which is that we're talking about games. We're talking about ways of using game techniques. And one has to be careful to not treat that as a light kind of thing. In other words, oh, you're making it silly, because you're not. What you're doing is you're using the reward techniques, the leveling up techniques, all the different aspects, the gradual learning. I mean, one of the great things about the Super Mario series was the way you had this incremental learning of, oh, now you can do this. Oh, now there's a special object that you need to do this with. Here's how you get, your rewards. We do the same kind of thing in a lot of our other products. One great example is a military trainer we did, which had a horrible acronym, DMCTI. I won't even go into what it all means. For the U.S. Army, as a logistics trainer. And the point was that we had to figure out how to make moving bullets, bottled water, and toilet paper fun and challenging, or more to the point, a good learning experience for a classroom environment. And what we figured out was, aha, this is a puzzle. It wasn't so much, well, here, we're up on the podium and we're going to teach you how it works. We're going to put you in the middle of a situation and say, okay, a problem just occurred. A bridge went out. An emergency happened. There was a need for, this truck broke down, or this convoy got attacked and therefore couldn't deliver its goods. You've got to solve a problem. You've got to get that bottled water to the front within 24 hours or 48 hours. What are you going to do about it? This proved to be the perfect solution for that particular world, because the soldiers were very excited about proving that they were smart enough to solve this problem. And they were remarkably effective at it. So we use that technique very carefully in putting that together. Another example of a game technique that we used for that product, and actually another one we're designing right now that we've had a lot of conversations on. It's very difficult to do scenarios that are 100% predictable. And when you're in an educational world, especially when you're in a military educational world, there's this thing called negative training. And we're absolutely terrified of negative training. The last thing you want to do is tell somebody to do it wrong and then have somebody get hurt. So we're very careful about that. And the way we have to control that is we want to control the scenario so that every single possible outcome is anticipated, and yet the user feels like they have complete freedom of movement and freedom of decision making. And so we come up with these very clever ways of doing it. I call it building a giant plexiglass wall at the edge of the world. And what you do is you build this, foot thick plexiglass wall at all the boundaries of the places where the person's not allowed to go. And so, for example, in our military thing, we made it so that, yeah, you can't solve the problem by using a helicopter because that's a cheap and easy solution. Well, actually, it's a very expensive and easy solution. We need to get the bottled water to these people. Fine, we'll just fly it there. No, we made it so that you can't do that because in the real world, that's not how you do it. You don't just pull the magical secret weapon out of the sky and spend 10 times the money you would normally spend and get the product there. That's not how it really works. You find the solution, and of course, we make sure that there is a solution. That's the kind of thing that we try to do in that space, using our game techniques, because we understand how to design scenarios like that. We've done them for years and years. So when we translate that into a more educational process, it really doesn't change the fundamental underlying characteristics of what we're doing. It just changes, the details of what the subject matter is.
That's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about delivery method. You build for a variety of platforms, from PCs to handhelds. How has the platform demands changed over the years, and what platforms will be the most relevant in the coming years, do you think?
Well, that's a big deal, and for us as a company that's been around for over 30 years, and I remember going to the very first Software Publishers Association conference when I joined back in the 1980s. If it gives you some idea of my original association with SIIA, but back then it was all desktop platforms and television sets and monitors and low resolution and so forth. And the lesson we learned very quickly was that it's all about being able to adapt to changes in platform. That's really what this is about. It was originally every 5 years. What I used to tell people is every 5 years. Then it was every 3 years. Now it's even less. But there's always this cycle that's going on of the platform changes to adapt, because the consumer is adapting. The different platforms that they're using, they vary over the years. And we've seen a shockingly rapid adoption first of mobile phones, and then of tablets, and then back really to mobile phones again, because mobile phones seem to be the dominant platform these days. The way we handle it is we try to be as platform agnostic as possible and as portable as possible. This was very difficult in the early iPhone days because you really didn't have a choice. You had to develop using Apple's tools in Apple style, and there were no portable options. There was basically only the one way to do it, which was to write in Objective-C for their platform. Nowadays, everything that we're developing is cross-platform because we can get away with it. And in some cases, we did a project for a major accounting firm. They wanted it to have custom code per platform, so we actually wrote half of it in Xamarin, which is a cross-platform toolkit, and the other half was custom to the target platform. So we had an Android version of the user interface screen, and we had a iOS version of the user interface screen, and they were both different code. But in other cases, like our medical ID app or this kiosk app that we're developing for photographs, we did it in a different engine that was cross-platform. It's a game engine, actually. But it gives us a lot of user interface control, so it looks really pretty. And it does just 2D stuff, but it does it very effectively. It's very small, and it allows us to move between the two platforms with almost exactly the same code. So, and we've done this all the way back in the Mac OS and PC days. We did this with an engine that we developed. We had our internal engine, which we still have and use, that does both PC and Macintosh software. And you can develop a single platform product, or should I say a single monolithic product that's 99% the same code on both machines, and yet you've got an Apple version and you've got a Windows version. This has been a big advantage for us. So that's the way I tend to handle it, is I try to seek maximum portability wherever possible. And there's a lot of sub-characteristics to that which we don't need to go into, but that's really the key, seek portability.
Wow, it's amazing how far we've come. So I know you're a big proponent of talent development, and one of the biggest challenges I hear from CEOs all the time is the ability to hire and retain good talent. How do you encourage talent development within Quicksilver, and specifically amongst the programmers?
Well, being a programmer myself, it helps because I can lead by example. Not everybody does that because not everybody is got that background in mind, but For me, that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing is that I've got that background, and everybody in the company always knows that I can jump in to their project and look at what they're doing and either help them or possibly hinder them, although I try not to. Occasionally, I'll write not the greatest code because I don't fully understand what they did. But seriously, what we do is we focus on um, letting people understand, treating people with respect. I mean, that's the number one thing. Okay. So you want to have all your people know that their skills are respected and understood, that you understand what they're saying, that you listen to what they're saying. So, for example, you know, there's always a give and take on project. You want to say, well, we need this by Tuesday. Okay. Or we need this by 2 months from now. No, you can't have it. That's ridiculous. That's not going to happen. Okay. Let's have an adult conversation about this. And we've had some tough ones. One of the biggest ones was years ago. We had a Star Trek game, and the programming team said, we're never going to get this done in less than a year. And I said, well, we've got to find a way. And what we did is we realized, well, wait a minute. We have there's a strange way we can do this that would basically involve reusing some old parts in an ugly way, but nobody's going to know. Only the programmers are going to know. And we're willing to take on that bullet because it'll save 6 months in the time frame if we just do this crazy, weird way of doing it because we can. And so we said, fine, let's make the compromise. What are the trade-offs of doing it this way versus that way? Okay, we decided that was a fine trade-off, and we shipped the product in a much faster time, and it was great. It was a very well-known product in its day. We've done that again more recently, over and over and over again. It's important to listen to the programmers and listen to the technical side of things, but also to really dive deep into what the problem is or what the challenge is, what the design is. Because one of the interesting things that happens is that you realize that your design specification may not be actually what you wanted originally. It may not, you may have defined the problem implying a solution that isn't the necessary solution. And I see this happen all the time. So one of the biggest things I try to do when talking to our business partners is, okay, well, what is it that you're really trying to achieve? Let's not worry about the technology you're trying to leave to do it. The technology is actually irrelevant to you. Ultimately, the customer doesn't care about what tech we use to build the product. All they care about is the experience and the results. And so we take a step back, and frequently we'll find, oh, well, I just thought you always had to do blank. In order to achieve the goal. And it turns out you don't need that at all. That's just one way of doing it, that everybody is doing it. And we've had major successes in several projects over the years where we took a step back and said, you know what? There's no reason why you have to write this business app using a business framework. You could use a game engine. And everybody looks at you initially like, you're nuts. Why would I want to use a game engine for a business app? And then we explain to them, well, because you can have user interface controls that do the strange things that you want to do that a business app is not designed to do. And then the light bulb goes off and they say, oh, so we get the same result, but it looks better and it's more usable. And we say, yeah, that's the point. And so a lot of this has to do with backing up from the problem to find out what the real core thing is that you're trying to build. So that's just one half of it. The other thing that you asked about was talent development. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing over the years is developing talent and, hiring interns in particular. We've done that ever since the beginning of the company, 30 years of hiring interns. And one of the, it's worked very well for us because we get folks who are in school who are not set in their ways, do not have typically strong opinions about, well, this is the only possible way anybody could ever do this. And we can pair them with people who do have experience and say, all right, look, I know you don't know how to do this, but here's the way it's normally solved. And then you convince them that it's a good idea, and then they go build it, and then you can advise them, okay, yeah, you built it almost right, but you forgot about this thing. What about the error handling case? What about the, if the user does this, what if the network goes down? Things like this. The experts can help question all those decisions that they're making and help them avoid making the really bad decisions. And keep them on the right track. The other thing that I do a lot is I work. I'm chairing an IEEE GameSig right now, and we're in our 6th year of doing a GameSig contest. And one of the things I do, and all the people in IEEE around me do, that's exciting, is that we have this contest where about 30 or 40 teams every year will enter their games in the contest, and then we'll get them in front of a panel of judges who are game industry veterans. we'll tell them, give them feedback on their pitch, and then award the winner a trophy. But it's not primarily about the trophy. That's not what it's about. It's about job development. It's about skills development. And that's what we tell everybody. We're very honest about this up front. We say your resume will go higher in the stack if you say I finished something. I committed to do something, and I got as far as building a whole level of a game that's playable, that I could demonstrate on a stage in front of a bunch of people, terrified of what I'm doing. You know, that's a big deal. It's very, very powerful to enable people to stick their neck out and prove that they're talented, prove that they're enthusiastic. And the result is I've hired a number of those people. So I've got a few people on the staff right now who were hired through that process. Where I said, oh, they're in the game contest. Well, that person's really good. So anyway, the long answer to a complicated question, but I think that it's really important, bottom line, to seek out the smart people and use clever techniques for finding the smart people, whether it's that or other mechanisms. Find the ones who are enthusiastic, and then treat them with respect and listen to them, but also lead by example and show them good ways of doing it. Give them an opportunity to learn because they absolutely love that.
I love how you seek out the talent with the game competition. That's fantastic. Bill, thank you so much for your time and insights today. For more information on SIIA and Quicksilver, please visit our websites and stay tuned for next week's SIIA Tech Chat.